Hi fellow developers, welcome back to my channel where we dive deep into the world of coding, and today we are tackling one of the fundamental aspects of web development, forms in React. Whether you're just starting out your coding journey or you are an experienced developer looking to level up your skills in React, you are in the right place. In this video, we will take you from building a basic form in React all the way to implementing advanced techniques like form validations and optimization. We will start first by demoing a basic form using a plain React state management, and we'll cover everything between setting up your project and handling user inputs and even mocking API calls when the form is submitted. And next, we will refactor our basic form using the React Hook form library. You will see how this library simplifies form management and improves performance by reducing unnecessary re-renders. Along the way, we will use the React DevTools profiler to monitor performance and demonstrate the impact of our optimization. But we are not stopping there. We'll integrate the Zod library for form validation, ensuring that our data is clean and error-free. From simple required fields to more complex validation, we will cover it all. And of course, what tutorial will be complete without testing? We will write a unit test in the end using Jest and React testing library to ensure that our forms behave as expected no matter what. And by the end of this video, you will have the skills and knowledge to build robust performant forms in React, whether you are building a simple contact form or a complex multi-step wizard. So grab your favorite beverage, get comfortable, and let's dive in. And to help you more, we'll add a timestamp in the description for you so you can jump out the sections that you don't need to. So let's dive in. So first off, let's talk about why learning React form hooks is essential for any React developer, whether you just started out or you have been coding for years. And I will demo all these things I'm saying now with examples later. But let's just a quick intro to this. So first thing is the state management, okay? As much your applications grow, your state managements grow, okay? So as you can see here, for example, we have 4 fields. And for 4 fields, we need 4 values that can hold that data for us within the state. Plus, you can have other states as well, which like error states, loading state, validation state, so many things, okay? That's one thing. Second thing is the validations, okay? As much your components are more hard and more complex, you have to write manually in JavaScript or TypeScript your validation for each and every field, okay? The third thing is the performance. So as you can see, if you have a state within your application, within your React component for each input, you have to re-render your component every time your state changes, okay? So let's say, for example, here we have 4 fields, and if they're all child components and only one of them changed, because it changed the state within main parents, it caused all your other fields to re-render, for example, okay? So you have a lot of wasted render in your application, which cause a performance issues. And you can imagine, from simple a login example to a huge wizard application, this can really impact hugely the performance of your app. Now, let's address the elephant in the room. Why use a third-party library like React Hook form instead of rolling your own solution? So the first thing is the simplicity. So here I opened the documentation for React form hooks, and we have here a simple example, okay? And you can see first things first is that you don't have any states or validations in your screen running, okay? Second thing is that flexibility. React Hook form offers a flexible and composable APIs that allows you to customize your form behavior, which we'll see later in the demo, to suit your specific needs. Whether you are building a simple contact form or a complex wizard with conditional logic, React Hook form will just cover it for you. The third thing is the performance, and it helps you to reduce the wasted rendering within your application. And here on the website, you have 2 examples live here. One using a React Hook form, and the other one is just plain React forms. And if I type in the right one, as soon as I type a letter, you can see these ones are bouncing, which means they're re-rendering. I will type again. You can see that's a lot of wasted rendering that you don't need. Now let's type on the left and type again. See, nothing is dancing here. So you have a lot of performance improvement here. Fourth thing is that it have a huge community support. Basically, if you have any issues, any questions, there are a lot of communities out there that can help you to solve your problems. Now let's demo all this boring talk that I was doing for last few seconds in actual demo and see how React hook form can help us to really improve our code performance and also the readability for our code and managing our validation. So let's jump in. I'll go to my app. So basically my app is just a simple form. I'll have to refresh this one first. And it have my name, okay? It have my age, and it have the email, and then a checkbox here to agree to terms, okay? So what I want is that whenever I click submit, I want all these fields actually to be validated, and they're all required, okay? So for now, if I click submit, you can see I have all these errors coming, okay? Now let's look at the actual code of this form so we can understand what complexity it makes for us and issues that can create for us in the future. Now, this component starts of course with a state. As we have 4 fields here, their values, we need to store them somewhere so we can access them when we submit the form. So of course we need something called a state to store them. So the way we created here is that we created one state called form state, which is an object, and this object contains properties for each field, okay? So we have 4 fields, so we have 4 properties. In some other places, you may see that each one is set up as our own state, which is not a problem. Also, it is a good way. Only this way we are doing today here, it helps you to use it for, like example, generic created forms, okay? So you can make it more generic this way later. In the next step is that in the lane 10, we have a state, another state, but this time is for catching the errors. So whenever an error happens, this state also is an object, and every time an error happens in a field, we will add the property name or the field name, and they will display on front of it the error messaging, okay? And we'll see later how we are doing that. Now, that's the state. Let's go to the form, then we can go back to these functions to understand what they are doing. So our form is just a basic HTML form within React, and it is a native form, okay? So we have the form element here in HTML, and that form have on submit property, which get triggered when you click this button here. And if you're wondering if you're new still to all this HTML and React and everything in the front end, then trigger this function by giving it a type of submit. So there is no on click anything here. You just have type submit, which trigger the form on submit property. And here we assigned a function called handle submit. Now, within this form, we have, of course, 4 inputs. So the first one is a text type, which means you can type text, and then you have name, the name of your input, then the value, and then on change function, okay? And on change, basically, whenever you type in your field, this function is getting triggered, okay? Every time you put something there, every time you type a letter or a number or anything with your keyboard, this function will get triggered, okay? Same thing we have for the next field, which is the age. Only the type is number, okay? And that will allow us to only enter numbers. We can't enter letters. And same thing, have again name, value, and on change function, which works same way as the other input, okay? And you can see here in these lanes, these ones were just displaying the error when they happened. Like you can see here, these red errors, they are these ones here, okay? Which they are only show up when the error happens. So for example, here I put FGG and I put a number here. If I click submit, those errors will go away because our validation is working. We should check after some time how that validation works. Now, next thing we have is the checkbox. And again, it's an input field with type checkbox. We have a name. And for this one, you don't have value, but you have something called checked, okay? Then we have an error displaying here. Now, if you see this on change function, we're triggering all these fields. All what it does is it captures the name and the value and the type of your input, okay? And then it's set for us, depending on which field, it's set for us the state or the value for that field. Okay, it may look a bit confusing, but if you watch my video about use state, you'll understand how this prev state works. Okay, basically just make sure it pick up whatever current value we have in our state before we change it, and then do modifications to it. And other thing we are doing here is, because we have this input fields behaving different in the checkbox, we are just double checking when the name and we have type is checkbox, then we change the value of checked, otherwise we do the change property value with it. Okay, now the other thing we are doing is validation. And this validation, our scenario today, we only running it when we submit. We are not running the validation as we write in the fields. And you can see all these ones are custom validation we are doing. Okay, so I say, for example, if the name doesn't exist, there is nothing there, then throw this error. If the age, again, there is no number there, then throw this error. Simple validation. Even the email, we're only checking if there is @ sign in it, nothing else. Okay, so very basic validation, but see, we have to write it by our own. And as much your form is growing, you have to add more state management. If your fields are more complex, you have to do more functionality to set up your state for them. And of course, your validation will get trickier and more complex as your form will be in real-time applications and be much bigger. Then the submit function here itself, again, because our form is very basic, so it's few lanes of code, but still it's a lot of code, to be honest. So first thing we have to do is that we have to prevent the default behavior of our form, and that's what we have to call e.prevent default. And I'll show you what that means. If I comment this code, okay, I click save, then if I go and click submit, you'll see my browser refresh. So that is a default behavior of the form, which usually in a real-time application, you don't want that to happen. You want, when you click submit, you want to access your data, do whatever manipulation you want to do it, call an API, and so on. Okay, but if you keep the default behavior and you click submit, your browser refresh and you will lose everything, and you can't do any manipulations you want with your form. So always we have to prevent the default behaviors of our form. Then here we are running validation, and if you say, okay, if there is an error, then throw error. Otherwise, you call your API, for example, if you want to submit your data somewhere in your backend. And then all what I'm doing now is just console log my form data. Okay, and I can show you that one working. I'll go to inspect, and I'll go to my console, and then I will just enter, for example, test, and then I'll say age, and I'll say some email, then check, then I'll click submit. So now I enter everything, so my validation should be happy. And you can see I go to my console and say form submitted. Okay, if I don't enter any of them, then I click submit, then I'm just getting an error. Okay, I didn't get the pop-up that my validation works. Okay, so up to now you can see for this small tiny form with very low basic validation, we have to write all this code by ourselves. Okay, and trust me, if you have these fields, for example, reusable somewhere else, even the validation, if you change in one place, it might make issues in other places. These things can get very tricky and can create a lot of issues within your application. Adding to that, the performance. And I think you might have heard about this everywhere, but I will demo to you today how you can check the problem. And when we refactor this form later to use a React form hook, we will run again the same check, and you can compare the differences. So save the times up for this, and so you can go back to it later and compare. So I'll go to the profiler. And here the profiler, if you're new to it, is a React dev tool that can help you to profile your React application, like how much your component is rendering, how much time it's taking, and also why it re-rendered. So many things, okay? And later in my channel, I'll add a full course on how you can debug and profile your React application. Now, what I would do, I go to profiler and I'll click this button so it records for me. But first, let me refresh. I'll go click record. Then all what I will do, I'll type two letters here. 1, 2, okay? Then I will go and stop my profiling. Now, First, you can see here is that we have two commits, 2 times our component re-rendered here, okay? So twice because I typed twice. And if I go down here, this is the component it re-rendered twice, which is my full complex form here, okay? And you can see first thing is that it's not only re-rendering, it's actually taking too much time to re-render. For simple reason is that I only type a letter, okay? And that can be really concerning as your application gets bigger and you have big lists of input fields in your application. The second thing is that when every time your component re-render, that means all your child components will re-render as well, okay, behind the scene, which really we don't need it to do so, okay? Now, if I go to my second one, same thing again, it's also orangey color. It took also too much time, okay? And simply again, only because I typed a letter in my input field. So these things, when you see these issues in your profiler, there are flags for you, you know, to look at it before your application gets bigger and bigger. And then you'll be having a lot of problem to refactor later. So usually that should be a part of your process of your development to check your code every time you're adding something new, profile it, make sure it's not creating any bottlenecks or any performance issues. Enough talking, we explained the problems. Now let's see how we can fix this using React form hook. Now what I have done, I'll upload this to GitHub so you have something to check if you want to play around. So I create a copy of this component which is called form easy, which is same thing as this one for now. So I will go there and we'll try to refactor now our components, okay? So let's do some cleanup first. So first thing is we don't need use state anymore. We don't need the states, we don't need the handle on change, we don't need validation, we don't need submission, and we don't need this anymore. Either this we don't need it too, we don't need this for now, and we don't need this as well. So all these cleanup things, and you'll see how much your code will be much easier to refactor and even grow it and scale it without any issues. Even here I don't need all this, and for now also I'll just remove this. I'll remove this error handling as well here. Okay, so that's a lot less. Let's remove this too. Okay, good. So now we removed all the validations, state management, the value, everything. Now let's introduce React hook form to our application. So first things first, that you have to install it. So you can just go to the npm directory and you can just copy this one here. And one thing to notice is that they're always publishing new versions, so it's always up to date. Also adding to that is that they have a huge community support out there, okay? So if there are any issues and questions, you'll easily find answers for your questions as well. Now you can go to your terminal and I will just open a new terminal. I'll say npm install React hook form. If you're using Yarn, of course, just use Yarn. So I'll just install that and it's done. I'll just save, close my terminal, and I'll come here. And first thing we have to do with this one is just import a hook that will help us to register our form within React form hook. Okay, so import useForm hook from React hook form. And then of course this one as a hook, you can only use it within your functional components. So I'll just go inside here. I will say use form. Okay, so this use form, okay, it is actually a function. It's a hook. So hook is a function simply, and this function gives us back an object, and this object have a lot of properties that will help us to make our form work. So let me first get that object. I will just call it form. Again, call it anything you want. I'm just going to form, and this form, I will get something from it at the moment that will help me to register my form within React form hook. Okay, I make it accessible to it so we can use all those magnificent features within React hook form. So the first thing I want to access is a method called register, from form. Okay, so register basically is a method that will help me to register all my input fields within the React hook form. Okay, within this instance I created within my component. Now this method give me back 4 elements. So what are those 4 elements? Okay, the 4 elements are your name of your input field, okay, the ref, and onChange function, and onBlur function. Okay, all these you can get them back from your register, and the register accepts 1 argument to start with, and that argument is the name of your input field. So if you remember this one, we had a name called name. Okay, so I'll just add name here. Okay, const. So that was giving me back, and you remember all these things we removed before from the input fields themselves. That's giving me back even 2 extra ones we didn't have before, which you can use them. They can be very useful in real-time applications. Now I can just go here and do this name equal name, and I can do ref equal ref, and so on. But then I'll have to do it for each and every one, and my code will be again just a bit more complex. So I can simply just remove this, copy that, remove this lane. Now we know what it gave us, so I'll just go and destructure it within my input field. Simple as that. Okay, now I want you to stop the video and try by yourself adding this register to other fields. Okay, they are very simple, and I'll do it now. So I'll just come to my number field, and I will just do same thing again, spread operator, so I get access to all the properties that this method give me back. So I'll do register, and I know this field I want to name it age. I'll go to my email, I'll do same thing again, spread operate, and then register, and then I'll say this field name is email, and I'll go same thing to my checkbox and spread operate my register method, and I'll just say this one call, I think I remember it was terms. Okay, save. Now register our inputs with our form in React form hooks. Now how you can be sure that really we registered this with our form without adding any extra code? Well, surprise surprise, React hook form have a div tool built in that can help us to monitor our fields even much more than just registration, but you can monitor other things like values, like errors, many other things. Now let's install that. Now if you head to the React form hook div tool, which will add the link in the description for you, it gives you the setup, which is really easy. You don't have to read all this documentation if you think it's confusing, but all what you have to do, npm install your dev tool, so I'll copy that and I will go and install it. So that one is a div dependency, and that's why it says -d. You don't need it for actual development on your production. You just need it for your development process. Okay, now we installed that. Second thing is that we need to import it in our form or our component that we need access to. So I'll say import, I'll say dev tool, and you see here my Visual Studio Code is helping me. So dev tool from hook form /dev tool. Okay, then we will go back to our lane 7, and you remember first time I said this hook give us back an object with so many properties that are very helpful. Well, you will access now one more, which is called control. Okay, and that's basically like a watcher which is watching over our form application. Okay, now adding that, I'll go down, and actually I need a wrapper around the form because I want to add a div outside my form input. So I'll just add a div, then paste my form, then outside my form I will add another div, but this time is the dev tool which we imported from our dev tool hook form. Okay, now dev tool, and that dev tool accepts one property called control. Okay, and that control will pass it the value of this control we imported from the use form. Okay, so control, then close my tag, save, go back to my application, And you can see here this little icon on the right. I'll try to zoom in, so hopefully you can see it. You see right there, okay? That is my dev tool for the React form hooks. If I click it, you'll see a lot of properties here, okay? It depends on your form. So for me, I have 4 inputs here. So there are 4: name, age, email, and terms, okay? And basically if you expand, let me expand all, and let me zoom in back so you can see everything. So if we look at it, you have at the moment 4 values here, or 4 properties. And those properties basically is the value. So does it have any value? Touch, did you touch it or not? And dirty, have you changed your value or not? Okay. And as we go, this dev tool will help us to do more tracking. Okay. Now if I go and type here, you'll see that the value have changed and showing all the things I am writing. Even if I come here and write 33, same value there. If I do checked, see it's changed to true, and checked, it changed back to false. Okay, so we know now for sure that our form is actually registered within our React hook form, and we can access as well the data of it. Okay, now the best part, okay, the performance. You remember before we did profiling for our previous form, we showed that whenever you type, your components actually re-rendering. Well, now with the useForm hook from React hook form, whenever you type or you check a button or you click a radio button or whatever you do in your form does not re-render. Absolutely not. And I'll prove you that again with the profiler without only talking. I will go to my profiler, and this is from our previous check, right? Remember we just typed 2 letters, so it re-rendered twice. Now let me hard refresh, clean up, and let me remove this. Okay, let's click the button to start recording, and I'll type as many things I want. Test name, age 33, email test@gmail.com, and check my checkbox as well. And now I'll stop recording, and you can see, wow, nothing have re-rendered. No profiling data has been recorded, which means your component did not re-render behind the scene. Okay, so imagine you have a big wizard and multi-steps forms, how much huge performances can impact your application. Okay, so I think up to now we can still say that we are happy with this. Okay, until now we're able to access our data, which before we use state and onChange function to do it. Also, we are able to update the state of their values without writing a lot of code. And adding on top of that, we are able to remove the wasted renderings. Now, let's see how we can handle the form submission. Okay, so this one we can divide actually into 3 steps. The first one is we import another method from our useForm hook, okay? And that method called handle submit, okay? The other thing is that we can create our own custom function, okay? And let's call it, for example, my submit function. And for now, we just cancel log my form is submitted. The third part is we have to trigger the submission of my form. So the way we can do it, we can just go here and say on submit, okay, which is a default property for the form elements in HTML. But this time, first thing we'll do is that we will call the handle submit from our useForm hook, okay? So handle submit. Then this handle submit method will accept our custom submit function, okay? So I'll call it my submit function. And the cool thing is, as soon as you do this, then your function have the full access of all the input data within your form. All what you have to do, just it will take an argument by default from here, okay? And if we come and cancel log the data, log data, save, go to my form, enter again, test, 33test@gmail.com and click submit. You can see my form is submitted, okay, and I can see all my field names, which is so cool. See, we didn't do any state management by ourselves, we didn't trigger any on-chain functions by ourselves. It's all everything done by the useForm hook when we register our input fields, which is really good and magical. So you saw that here when I click submit, I didn't tick my agree to terms and conditions, because until now, if you see my code, there is no validation, nowhere where my form is running any validation. So let's move to the next topic, which is form validation using React hook form. So React form hook by default, it supports all the various form HTML validation rules. That include required, min length, max length, min and max, and also the pattern if you want to add a regex validation. Okay, let's start with very basic validation, which is just required, and see how we can do that. It's very simple. You remember the register method that we added to register our input fields? It accepts the first parameter or the first argument, which is the name of your field. Then the second one, it is an object. And that object you can add required here and set it to true, for example, okay? Set that to true. I'll just hard refresh my browser and I will just go open my React hook form dev tool and I'll just come here. And don't worry about these errors, it's just because of my React dev tool. As I'm using Next.js, it's just throwing some errors because of hydration issues. Now, ignore all that. I will go here and I click submit without typing anything, okay? Click submit, and you can see error type and the name is required, okay? One more thing we can do as well is that we can, instead of true, give a message and say name is required, okay? Save, and now I'll go back here and submit, and you see a different message. Now, when I click submit, you can see here we have error type is required, and also we can display the message. So basically, without any extra validation or anything or custom code, our form can have access to all this information, okay? Now, let's do a little bit more complex one, okay? We will go to our input field, and basically I want validation for required, okay? And also I want different messaging for validation for age less, for example, than 16, okay? So again, I go to my register, it accepts a second object, okay, as an argument. And here what I can do, for example, required, and I will do age is required, okay, that in case you don't type anything. Then I'll have another validation which is called mean, okay, and the mean will have the number that you want. So I can say this one is another object and it have value which will compare to, also minimum is 16, and the message I can display please, no, I'll just say the age should be more than 16, okay? Oops, my spelling here is wrong. Save. So when I click submit, I get this error, which is can see here two errors. First is the name field which is required. Then the second one here is saying error message type is required. Then message age is required. So it runs the first one because there's no value for it. That's the first one runs. Okay. Now if I do here test, then I put 10 here. Okay. Now as I type, you can see the validation is running. So we have validation running while we are typing. Okay, which is really cool. Now error type is not required anymore. Error type is minimum, min, and the message is saying the age should be more than 16. Okay, if I do here 17, then that error should go away, and you can see the age is 17. It is touch and dirty, but there's no error here, which is really cool. So basically, we're able even to handle the error and the messaging as well together. Now let's go to our email. And the email, this one will be a little bit trickier one. Why? Because we will use a pattern syntax. And trust me, it's not that tricky one. It's just standard way again, same as we did for the main. So again, I will go to my register, a second argument which is an object, and same thing, I'll say it's required. First, because I want different errors for each, I'll say please enter an email. And I'll come here and I'll add another thing called pattern. So anything regarding pattern validation, you add it under pattern. And I'll say again, it have a value and it will have a message as well. And the message will be, please enter a valid email address. And the pattern, I'll just paste it here. There we go. So again, two validations we're doing here. We're doing required, means I need to enter an email, and then when something is there, we need to make a check to see if the pattern follow this validation here. Now, let's first go and type something here. So you see, as I type, it's saying pattern is the error type, and please enter a valid email address, and I have access to the value too. As I write test add, okay, still my error is there because that's not the format, gmail.com. Now it is happy. So without writing or adding any extra code or validations, we're just adding properties and the syntax of our pattern. It's running the validations for us, and also it's handling for us the time you access the errors and also the messaging for each and every error. So now we can see the validation, we can see the errors popping up. Now how we can access these errors and show them and use them within our UI. So that's very simple as well.